Welcome, everyone. This is Greg Louis Kwan on behalf of the Senior Counsel Division, and I'd like everyone to welcome our speaker today, Percy E. Hara. I'd like to make a brief introduction. Uh, Percy the topic today is to place or not to place uh, parents or ourselves into retirement communities. And by way of brief introduction, Percy is a 32-year veteran of the mortgage business, and for the last 19 years, he has been a specialist in reverse mortgages. He is also, in my view, the most well known for being the publisher and editor of Generations magazine, a magazine which caters to Hawaii seniors and highlighting programs and services serving our community. He has several certifications, including a certified senior advisor, and he has a certification for long-term care. He has served as past president and a member of the Hawaii Pacific Gerontological Association and several other boards and commissions. And last but not least, for the last 14 years, Percy has been the presenter of the very popular Aging in Place workshop. And with that, I'd like for us to welcome Percy Ihara. Thank you, Percy.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Um, yeah, as a certified senior advisor, I got that designation in the early 2000s. And I just re-upped it just in the last few years because it's an accredited designation. And it's highly regarded, highly watched, highly compliant. And so we get a magazine every other month called the Certified Senior Magazine. And in the last few sessions, few issues, I've noticed a lot of great articles about aging. And this last one really, really kind of stuck to me because I'm dealing with many of my clients. I'm dealing with this situation with many of the financial advisors, attorneys that I work with, including my own family. And it's very simple: to place or not to place, and that is the question. And so I sent that I forwarded it to you guys. So if you want to take a look at that, pull it down. It's in our Generations magazine issue that is going on right now. Actually, it's the April-May issue. It's on our website. So I want to we talk about this issue is, my own family, my own auntie, my own clients are having a difficult situation. What do we do? And so it's really important to understand it's going to affect almost everybody unless you die right away, which typically doesn't happen anymore. This is a tough call. There's no right way to make a decision. Everybody's family is different. Everybody's experience is different. And a lot of times families will say, "Oh, my wife's family did this, or my cousin did this, or my neighbor did this," and there's no right answer. The only right answer I tell people is that after that person dies, we know whether they made the right decision or not, because hindsight is 2020. I've seen several situations, including my clients and family members, that have made the wrong decision and really messed up. But it's really very simple. I was talking to Greg earlier, is that you really need to have professional help. And later on in the presentation, I'll talk about some options, some people you can call. But it's really simple: to place or not to place. What age would that be? What kind of health situations will they be in? What would transpire to make them make the call to move out? I've had this discussion with many times with my own parents, who are 90 and 92. My mother has dementia. They've been to Vegas 3 times this year. In fact, my dad just called me just before this meeting, is saying if I was still coming over tonight to bring dinner, which I bring every Thursday, because they're in quarantine. They came back and took the tests, and they found out that the company that they used a month ago, they were not approved testing agency anymore. And so they're in quarantine. So I'm going to drop off dinner tonight. So it starts off, it's another, this guy, Chuck Bongiovanni, on the mainland, that wrote this article. We put it in our magazine. Chuck's very experienced in a lot of these, you can tell by his designations, and dealing with his own family and dealing with people that we deal with in the professional field, helping clients, helping loved ones decide whether to stay in a home or not. And they really simply broke it down to 4 different styles or 4 different types of people. And it's so important to understand. And you may be even be between the 4, you may be blatantly one of the 4, or you maybe you're not any of the 4. So it's really important to A lot of times you're dealing with your parents, like myself and my 5 other siblings, or my auntie and my 3 cousins dealing with my auntie. Is where do we stand with this? Is it a decision that needs to be made right away? Is a decision you need to make down the road? And I tell people, I've always been a big believer is that we need to be proactive. We need to plan ahead, plan for the worst case scenario, expect the best. Yeah, we got to plan for the worst case scenario when something's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, great, but we got to plan for the worst case scenario, because if it does happen, at least we're prepared. So the article is really great. It breaks down very simply 4 different types of people. The first one he talks about in the session is called the scramblers. And usually it's a crisis situation where somebody's fallen down, um, and now they have to get placed or move into the home. It's interesting. Almost every day I run into somebody that I spend time talking to them about their family member, their loved one. And I was at a restaurant last night, and one of my friends came in, very well-known retired banker that you guys probably know, and he was telling me about his loved one is being discharged from the hospital actually today, and she had fallen down and fractured her hip. And so I said, well, is she going to go to rehab? He goes, no, she's okay. She actually got better. Okay, so you're going to go home? Yes, I think so. I said, well, you have to make a decision when you get discharged. You want to have a care plan. Just make sure that the nurse or the social worker at the hospital, when you're being discharged, you have a clear idea of a care plan. In other words, what's going to happen, what kind of Band-Aids or bed or oxygen or whatever you're going to need to be able to live at home. You have that available. Medicare covers a lot of that, so check with the Medicare and the hospital. Hospital can probably tell you, but it's really important. I told him, you got to have a good idea of how the care is going to be, and he said probably going to be at home because he didn't want to go to a care home. And it's fine. There's a lot of good care homes, and there's a small amount of care homes that are giving the whole industry a bad reputation, but there's a lot of great care homes out there, and you really have to search. There's a few companies that are actually available to do that for you. Most of them are free at charge. And we can cover that a little bit later on how they do that. But the scramblers are the ones that really something happened, something tragic. I had a client fell down the driveway. The driveway was really steep and fell down. And after the 3rd time, by the way, they finally had to move her to a facility. It was very traumatic, but because this lady did not ever want to go to a care home, always wanted to stay at home, but they didn't have a choice. And it's something that family never planned for, because they figured, well, mom said never going to go. Okay, so we're not going to plan for that. Well, they didn't have an option. So these are people scrambling around the last minute, finding out they got to place her someplace, or the hospital. She's in the hospital for 3 days. And Medicare, by the way, as you guys may or may not know, Medicare covers a certain amount of time in the hospital, but there are some triggers for discharge, triggers for rehab. So it's really important to work with that, the nurse or the care manager or the case manager at the hospital to find out what these triggers are, because you don't want to get up one day and they say, get a call from the hospital, today's Thursday. And by the way, Mr. Ihara, your mother she'll be discharged tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And now you're scrambling to find a facility, find a location. If you bring them back home, and by the way, sometimes with Medicare is going to pay for that, the doctor may say you cannot go home. Yeah, because they cannot put you in a risky situation. So if your loved one requires care, they're going to require them to put it into a skilled nursing facility for rehab. So that's a little bit of a conversation again with the doctor, with the care manager over there, to have a clear plan. What are you going to do when you get discharged? So these are the scramblers. These guys are just sweating it. I've gotten calls at nighttime. I've had family members call me. What do we do? And so make sure you have that idea of what that scrambler is. If you don't want to be a scrambler, start working with your loved ones and start planning ahead. Reluctant, right there, consenters or the adults that are actually, they don't want to go, but the family said, listen, mom, I can't take care of you anymore. And we're going to have to place you in a retirement community or a CCRC, continued care residential community, where there's some care. There's a few facilities around town, and if you want to, Jaylene and Brian, if they want to text, send questions through the Zoom, uh, if you can list them there, I can cover those as well. This is kind of important stuff because this, to me, is more life and death. These are very serious situations, very serious conversations that you may not be able to answer right away, but you need the answer right away to make a decision. So it's very critical time that you understand the process. And if you don't understand the process, raise your hands. Listen, can we go over that again? I need to fully understand what do I do with my loved one. It is very critical because typically it's the children have to make these decisions, or a spouse. But sometimes the spouse is all stressed out already because she's worried about a husband or a wife. So these are very critical times and very stressful times. Um, if you have more than one sibling, it can be very stressful because they may not agree with you. Who has control over that? So it's really important. The reluctant consenters really are people that are forced to get out, move out. Um, and we talk about emphysema, heart conditions, dementia, Alzheimer's. It's very, very serious situations. So those are those people. The wake up callers basically are situations where there's a severe fall, and a lot of times they fall because of dehydration, and they don't take the medication. If they're dehydrated and don't take a medication, it could be an issue. They could be dehydrated, no water in their system, and take the medication, and they may have a different reaction. So it's really important. I really force people, clients, loved ones, to drink a lot of water, carry a water bottle everywhere they go by their side, because it can cause more issues. And as you guys know through your own experiences, falls are huge. Um, my own mother has fallen several times a week. The last month's been pretty good, and I think the reason why was the second physical therapist that we brought in, because I felt the first one didn't really cover enough. The second physical therapist that came in, I explained to the physical therapist that where mom has fallen, from the bed to the bathroom, from the bathroom to the dining room table, and from the dining room table to her couch that she watches TV on every day. So I specifically told the physical therapist to train my mother and my father how to navigate those 3-4 areas. And if my mom doesn't want to fall down again, she needs to understand where the risky parts are and where to hold on to, ask for help. And my father needs to understand how to guide her through the walkway, through the bathroom, through the couch. It's really, really important because people have taken headers where they fall on their face. Their face is black and blue. It happens quite often. I belong to a fall prevention consortium for the state of Hawaii Department of Health, and we meet every quarter. And 3 years ago, one of our board members, took a header right after one of our meetings, walking to his car, and it was pretty serious. That person did eventually have to retire about a year later, but that just shows you that we're all vulnerable. So the wake up callers is like they finally get a situation up, finally need to understand, and they finally need to make a decision to move out. That's a very, very difficult conversation. It's a very difficult time for the family. And we don't know, like I said, we don't know what's the right call or not until after that person passed away, whether were comfortable, whether they could afford it. Did they enjoy the food? Did they know anybody in the facility? Some people are not very social. Some people are very social. So I would recommend everybody, if they're looking at within 2 or 3 years of possibly the need to place a loved one, I would call every facility that you can think of and go visit them. It's about an hour, hour and a half tour. If they allow you to, ask if you could try the food, because to me, the food is a big part of the decision making where they go. It's really important. And I can't express that enough because we've had clients go on tours and they never tried the food. When they finally moved in, they didn't like the food. So it's really, really important. So that's the wake up callers. The advanced planners are people that plan ahead, that take my advice, and go take tours. If you're a financial advisor or your attorney, I would say have your office set up maybe 3 tours and ask your clients or loved ones if they want to go meet meet at the facility. Most of the facilities will allow you to have a snack or try the food. I highly recommend that. Uh, it's something that I think people have expectations of what a facility is, what they do, the food. But the reality is, once you move in, you moved in. Most of the facilities that are month-to-month rental is a 3-month minimum. So you're gonna have to put up with food for 3 months. The buy-in is a little bit different. As you know, Arcadia, 15 Craigside are buy-in. Kahalanui is a buy-in, but you get a certain percentage back down the road. But you want to try it out. How the dining area is very important. I have a family relative in one of the facilities, and I take my auntie furikake or chocolate every few months because the food is not the most tasty sometimes because you have to be healthy. And the day I met with her recently, she said, "Oh, come up to my unit. We'll eat over there." I said, "Okay, great." So I was asking her one time, that, "So you eat here once a week by yourself?" And she goes, "Yes, I do. 6 days with the ladies is great, but I need a rest from that every once a week." It's quite funny. Um, but she needed a rest from all the gossip and all the lady talking and who's this, who's that new person over there, you know. It's really critical and understandable why she did that. Um, but they like sweets as they get older, so make sure if you have a loved one, understand that. The advanced planners may have long-term care insurance, and so long-term care insurance can pay for some of the care. My mother just went through application process. She was approved last month, so she's on claim right now. So every policy is different. Um, hopefully you can deal with somebody locally. Most of the people are deal on the mainland when it comes to applying for the job, applying for the long-term care insurance. They may require a nurse practitioner or somebody to come into the home to do some tests, ask some questions. Uh, I was there when they did my mother. I would highly recommend, if you go through this process, you be there or somebody in the family does there and takes really good notes. When questions are answered, make sure you understand why they're asking the question, because it kind of went overboard with my mother's dementia, and she got quite frustrated about many questions they're asking about our memory. And so I had to step in and say, "Listen, we've already documented that my mother has dementia, so I'm not too sure why you continue these questions for." And so they finally stopped, but my mother got quite angry. So it's really important. Um, Check with the facility that you're looking at. If the long-term care insurance, they take it. And then how does that insurance company pay that out? Uh, all this is really important when you're planning ahead of time. And like myself, I'm not a big car fixer guy. I cannot fix cars. So if my clutch went out when I was like in my 20s, I had no clue how to fix it. You can go online today all you want, but it's not the same. Hire a professional that has a lot of experience in this. A lot of family members, including my clients' families, think they know how to do things. Um, they may have done it once or twice or many times, but every situation is different. The plans today are different. The facilities and requirements and rules today are different. Healthcare is different. Medicare is different. So it's really important to understand that as you go forward, because just gather as much information as you can right now to be ready when you want to get placed, or your loved one or your parent or auntie is going to be placed. Ask a lot of questions. And I mentioned before, I always try to keep a book with you to take down good notes, phone numbers, times, everything that was mentioned. Um, One thing that we saw in the mainland and growing here a little bit is group living. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day how they're going to have one of the houses. They were going to use it for group living. So they have identified 4 people that want to live together. They'll pay rent, and they're all healthy relatively, but they're like in the mid late 70s. But at some point down the road, when they need care, or if they need care, what's that plan? So really important to understand that we're all going to die someday. I know many baby boomers have told me, no, they're not going to die, but they will. But down the road, you really need to think about when that point where you won't be able to drive, you won't be able to get around as well in the house. You might need a cane, a walker, a scooter, is a wheelchair. It's really important to understand that. So plan out as long as possible. Almost all my clients on my reverse mortgage side stay with me to the day they pass on. So I would continually on the ground floor working with a lot of my clients and providing resources, providing situations, providing questions to ask a facility or your doctor or your Medicare agent what's going on with your care. It's just so important to plan ahead because I've seen so many situations. I've been on people's deathbeds. They called me in, talk to their kids about what's going on. I'm not a mediator. I'm not a trained mediator, nor do I charge for any consultation. So I try to just use my experience to explain the situation, what's going to happen if you do this, what's going to happen if you do that. It's so critical at times where we see so many families struggling with that, and then we have infighting about who has to make the final decision. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm one of six. Many of my clients um, have 3 or 4 kids, and it really makes a difference whether the oldest one is here or on the mainland. As you folks all know, Hawaii and their families, they're all over the place. Um, Many times situation now, I've seen a lot of my clients have an only child. um, my neighbor was an only child. She took care of mom until it got too stressful, had to put her in a facility. I have a client of mine that the son lives at home, but he doesn't want to do any kind of care. So there's so many different situations out there that you can fit into one of the 4 styles, but it's really important to understand. So if you have any questions regarding those 4 styles, let me know. You can email me as well. Um, I did want to cover for my reverse mortgage business, we always give out this document. It's from the National Council on Aging. It's called Use Your Home to Stay at Home. So 90% of people want to stay in the home. Um, and 90% of people actually probably do because we have a minimum amount of beds in Hawaii. So they're kind of forced to stay at home. Plus the cost factor may be an issue. Um, Medicaid right now is still available, but my personal opinion going forward, it might be a little risky to bank on that because we only have so many beds. We already have a shortage of certified nurses aides, and we're already very looking at, if you notice commercials nowadays, we're short of nurses. Healthcare is a huge industry that being burdened with the pandemic. So it's important to understand what's going on. You can find this online, by the way, if you just Google it. You can Google it. It's from the National Council on Aging. They're very similar to AARP, but they're totally nonprofit because AARP has a for-profit side and a nonprofit side. This company, this agency, National Council on Aging, right here, is a nonprofit totally. And so they got involved with the reverse mortgage industry to provide this booklet because all the clients that are looking at reverse mortgage have to be counseled. It's a requirement. I am not allowed to take an application until they are counseled. So has a lot of different topics that you can talk about. Um, as you see the pictures of older seniors, um, and some of the topics here, the challenges of aging in place. That's really critical because that might be the only place they can stay. But there may be challenges where the location is, if it's elevated rooms, elevated garage, walk stairs, is it a split level, 2-story, where's a bathroom, where's a bedroom? So this document covers a lot of these things. And a lot of times people don't understand their needs and wants and concerns. So professionals like myself are able to come in here and discuss their needs, wants, and concerns because they may not have thought about that. There's a few entities out there that do actually a fall assessment, which you can call up and they'll go into the home and look at the home, do a walkthrough, and they can do assessment on the falls prevention and any areas that are risky places for falls. Majority of the falls happen in the bathroom because it's very close quartered. People think they're safe in there. The downside to that, everything you fall on in the bathroom is hard. The tile, the toilet, the sink is very hard. The handrail, they may hit their head on the handrail, so something to think about. Um, uh, Housing is very important. Safety, isolation. Uh, some of the things that you may need to have: housekeeping, meal preparation, home repairs, we're seeing a lot of these issues right now. There's a couple of nonprofits out there that handle this kind of things. The Caregiver Foundation of America, Gary Powell, uh, CSI, it's a trust entity, uh, Comfort, Security, and Independence, run by Shin Domen. Um, those are two nonprofits. Caregiver Found, these Catholic Charities does has a little bit of this. Obviously, Meals on Wheels and Manoa Wheels and Meals. Um, Project Donna has some of these services out there. It's a very well-known entity, Project Donna. A lot of people don't know that certified nurse's aid that's in the home can actually help with a little bit of meal preparation, like heating things up, doing light housekeeping, just doing the laundry, taking things out of laundry, folding clothes, small little things that a certified nurse's aid can handle. And that's part of their responsibilities. The cost of care, as you guys probably know, is quite high. These are national averages from 2017. I would say they're probably up by about $3 to $5 an hour. Most of those figures there. So it's very critical to understand the cost of care. And I always tell people you need to plan all the way out to that person passes away. In other words, if they're doing good now, great. I'm not worried about now. I'm worried about 5, 10, 20 years from now when they're 90, 85, 95, and they're going to need more skilled care. Many of my clients right now, we're looking at memory care, and that memory care can run anywhere from $8,000 to $14,000 a month. So, and I really don't, when people ask me about facilities, we look at facilities by where they live and the quality of care. That's the first priorities. We never look at the cost of care first, because as you know, you want a Toyota or Mercedes, what can you afford? You're not going to get a Mercedes with a Toyota price. So it's really important to understand what the cost is. The private pay is you think it's expensive? It is, but that's just the reality of life in Hawaii, reality of our real estate, reality of our cost of care, our wages is really important. But this booklet here is really good. It's about 24 pages, I believe. It's really good to walk your client through or your loved one through. Talks about home equity. A lot of times, some studies I've found that once you reach the age of 85, there's a very good chance you're going to run out of money. So using home equity is the last bucket that you have besides your IRA, your stocks, bonds, your pension. So look at it carefully at that. I work with a lot of the banks and credit unions on line of credits. Housing options, because a reverse mortgage, by the way, is a line of credit, just letting you know. Your house is a resource. So it's very important to understand those sectors of life. Conventional line of credits are really good. The reverse mortgage. So this book also has advantages and disadvantages. So these are very generic now, very generic information. So I always recommend you meet somebody in person or on a Zoom call to discuss the specifics of your situation. And if you don't know all the ins and outs of home equity lines, ask the loan officer. You can call me up, ask me up. We'll get down to the nitty gritty of how things are. Reverse mortgage is gaining popularity nowadays. The government loan and the jumbo proprietary mortgages out there that are really good. The booklet talks about some basic things now. So if you need to drill down to further get a more intimate climate of the product and how it works, just give me a call. It's really important to understand. I don't like band-aids. When I work with financial advisor attorneys, I say, let's plan out to the day they pass away, so we understand what risk they're in and whether that money is going to last, and to make them understand the cost of care. It's amazing how many times people will come up to me because they can't believe it's $4,000 to $5,000 for a retirement facility that gives no care. That's just the reality of life, the reality of the situation in Hawaii. Neighbor islands, the cost of care is even more. And it's very important to understand not only does it cost more, there are really limited resources out there, very limited resources in terms for CNAs, nurses, doctors, facilities, home care, all of the above is very limited. I had a family member moved back to the Big Island because they couldn't afford it for mom's care. So one of my relatives had to move back with her husband to care for mom. And it's been probably 3 years now. Um, and I think I mentioned this before. National average is once you reach the age of 85, it's 48% chance you're going to get dementia, long-term Alzheimer's. In Hawaii, it's probably much higher. I was talking to Greg earlier that 3 years ago, they started to find out that a lot of seniors were not documented. In other words, were not diagnosed to have Alzheimer's dementia. And so University of Hawaii got a grant, a 3-year grant, to educate doctors, educate nurses, educate nurse practitioners, or educate the office manager the importance of getting that client documented, because they probably know. Even my own relatives, doctors said, oh, it's just old age. I told them, get rid of that doctor if they think it's just old age. There's very few geriatricians, by the way. So PCP is a primary care physician. If your loved one is getting older and you think there's more issues going on, not being solved, make sure that you ask for a geriatrician. They specialize in aging adults. And it's very, very important. Once my family member got a geriatrician, within 1 month, no problem. I already know that it's got she has dementia, vascular dementia, and I waited 9-10 months to get that diagnosis. So it's really important to work with professionals that understand the aging process, understand the future of aging, get educated. We're in a process right now of educating my dad about dementia because he's given a hard time dealing with my mom. I don't think you can hear that weed whacker next door to me. But it's so critical to understand the long-term effects of dementia. Let's see here. So advantage, disadvantage of home equity lines of credits. It's a lot of information here. I know we don't have that much time to go into it. Let's see what else I can bring up here. So I'm trying to see where, how do I get to that? Where was that? Okay, so this is just my notes I written down about options and things that people need to think about. Like I said, an aging in place workshop that we do at the Alamon Hotel. This one is set for this year. Of course, obviously with the pandemic, at the Alamon Hotel, October 2nd. We take the whole floor of the mezzanine level, 6 rooms. There'll be 6 workshops at one time. And it runs from 7:30 to 2:30. We'll have all the various different topics on aging. These are basically resources. The website Aging in Place Council is a nonprofit that has a lot of information about aging in place. The reverse mortgage, like I said, the booklet that we hand out to everybody is a requirement, is use your home as stay at home. Our retirement options, really, it's amazing how many people I run into every day. Like my friend at the restaurant yesterday, he was kind of forced to be retired. He's late 60s, thinking about the finances, thinking about when to take Social Security. It's just so critical in those decisions. So hopefully you have a financial advisor that understands aging. If they don't, let me know. I can refer you out to some I call it holistic planners that understand the whole life of planning. Is really, really important because a lot of financial advisors really only want to spend time investing money for you because that's where they make most of the money, and which is true. But they also have to understand, and I work with planners that actually look at the long-term side. Once they're retired, what do you do when they're coming down the hill? It's really important. When they come down the hill, that's long-term care. And making sure your financial advisor understands that, has a lot of years of experience, has worked with all different types of clients, and just work together. Whether you're working with a certified financial planner, CFP, you can find the CFP list on the FPA Hawaii website. Work with the insurance agent, work with the CPA, work with the attorney, and work with the real estate agent. It's very critical to understand these all need to work together. I'll give you a good example. We had a client that had 3 properties. And the big house was great. It was $1 million home, million plus. They had two smaller units. They wanted to save these two other smaller units for the two kids. And the big house goes to their one son that lives with them because he doesn't have a property. Well, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a real estate agent. So I said, well, talk to all these people from a tax point of view. Would it be better to sell them or transfer it into their names? And you need to talk to your financial advisor to find out what kind of long-term care plan you have. Not only from the cost of care, can you afford to go on private pay? Uh, can you afford not to have long-term care insurance? Because right now, as you all probably know, there's limited companies that do long-term care insurance, very limited. And I think that list will go down slowly the next few years. See, this low interest rate environment is not good for insurance companies because that premium you pay every month is supposed to be invested. And there's very little places they can get any much of return. So I've seen life insurance policies lapse. In other words, it's not worth anything after 20 years because the premiums didn't cover the payout. So I work with a lot of agents, insurance agents, to explain that. And so I tell them, you need to look back because you don't want a client come to you and find out that, it's lapsed. So it's really important to understand that side of the game. Um, Working with the tax person, like this family here, they wanted to deed the two properties, small property to other children. Is there a tax consequence? Is it something that you need to think about? So really important. Uh, okay, so somebody had a question about memory care. Basically, yeah, it's just dementia, by the way, is the whole disease. It is basically neurologic loss of your memory, the dementia. Alzheimer's was a doctor that founded that disease. That's why it's called Alzheimer's disease. I believe that has the highest percentage of people have Alzheimer's. But memory care is a special unit. It's on one floor, typically. They may have anywhere from 12 to 24 beds, specifically for memory care, specifically for adults that need to be watched 24/7. It's a secure floor or segment of the facility. It costs more, anywhere from probably 18 to 14,000 per month. And so it's 24/7 care. All the people that work in the facility are specifically trained with dementia. Over the years I've learned about dementia, I didn't realize after a while your vision will slowly go like this. Your hearing will go as we all kind of know. They may not recognize your spouse. In fact, Greg was Sandra Day O'Connor, the Supreme Court Justice, retired from the bench early because her husband had dementia. So they moved him into a facility. And several years later, there was a report about her needing psychological care. And the reason why is that she could not deal with her husband having a girlfriend because her husband did not know he was still married. So he in a facility, that's where the other person lived, the lady, became his girlfriend, and they were a couple. It was all online. It was in the news, big time news. So it's something that I need to tell my father the same thing. At some point, mom may not recognize you, let alone know your name. 2 issues ago in the magazine, we had Mrs. Ige on the cover, the governor's wife, talking about how her mother doesn't know her name anymore. It's hard to believe that, but it just shows you the enormous issues of dementia and Alzheimer's and the massive effects. When I found out that if you have dementia, serious dementia, you could be bedbound for 7 to 10 years, like my neighbor. You can figure out how to eat and chew. It's amazing. How to go to the bathroom. This is part of your bodily functions that deteriorate. So memory care is very serious. Typically, the doctor may recommend that, depending on where they're setting it, whether at home or in a retirement community where there's no care, like a Plaza or Arcadia or Hawaii Kai Retirement, the place out in Kapolei, Ilima Lejano, they have special units now for just memory care because it requires too much of care to watch them 24/7. They need to be in a secure environment so they don't walk out the door. Turn on the oven, answer the phone when they shouldn't be answering the phone, or talking to somebody, or giving away personal information. So it's a secured environment, very relatively safe. I mean, they can't watch you 24/7 if you fall down, but they'll always be there if when care is needed. But like I said, the cost anywhere from 8,000 to 14,000 depending on the facility. So I know that's a big bullet to bite, but if your loved one is important, um, we try not to make them understand that how to put a dollar on how much you love your parent, or you love your wife or spouse. So very important to plan ahead. It's only going to get worse, by the way. The cost of care will only go up in Hawaii because of a limited real estate environment. Uh, our process to get facilities approved. 2 years ago, there's a big uproar about illegal care homes because these 100 or so care homes were operating illegally because they waited 1 to 2 years to get licensed because the Department of Health didn't have staff, didn't make it a priority to investigate and get these care homes licensed. So it was over 100 of them. And that's been cleared up to a certain extent from what we understand from the Department of Health, especially with COVID now. But I'm sure they're operating out there. So it's really important to understand what does that look like, and do you want to make that kind of decision? One caveat with that is that if you hire somebody yourself and you pay them private pay, cash out of your pocket or a check for that caregiver, you now become the employer. So it's very critical to understand, because if they fall down, get hurt, get mad at you, they can file a claim against you as the employer. I've seen situations where they didn't get along with their kids, so they started stealing money from the parent, abusing the parent, walking out, filing unemployment, disability because they got hurt on the job, various things that can happen. So really important. Our website, generations808.com, in our magazine has a list on our website of skilled nurse, all the facilities, by the way, skilled nursing options, retirement living. Department of Health website has a list as well. The long-term LTCO is a long-term care ombudsman, John McDermott. He can be contacted through the Department of Health. He's out of the Executive Office on Aging. For complaints, there's a separate division, something in the Department of Health for long-term care, but there's a separate division that they would follow the complaints. John McDermott would investigate it and hand it over to a different division. But he'll look into the claim, look into the situation. Like I said earlier, cost of care is so rampant. I thought the financial advisor a couple of months ago, they've already been through $1 million in long-term care. Did you see the article 2 days ago in the news about a lady celebrating her 103rd birthday, I believe it was? She's been in a facility since 2008. So that's what, 12 years. 12 years times, let's say, 48,000 a year, 50,000 a year. How much money that is? It's quite a bit. So understanding that the cost of care is very critical. It's important to plan ahead. Okay, can you take out a reverse mortgage if the property is owned in trust? Yes, you can take out a reverse mortgage. It's got to be a revocable trust. There are situations where if it's irrevocable, we can take a look at that. Nobody lends on generation skipping trusts. If it's in a revocable trust, we don't require you to take it out of the trust and put it back in the trust. We almost never do that. And so the reverse mortgage questions are more specific. I'm a licensed reverse mortgage specialist with reverse mortgage funding, and I have to give out my National Mortgage Licensing number, 582944. So his question was, what happens to the property if for some reason affordability forgetting is due to memory, property tax and insurance goes unpaid? So whenever I meet with a senior, I try to get involved with the children as well, if they have children, and if they want to meet with them, and if they want to allow me to talk to them. Do they want to get involved in that process? Because I do plan for the day one spouse passes away and the remaining spouse passes away. That's how far I plan out. So if I think it's going to be an issue down the road, depending on how much equity is left over, we can set aside money to pay for the property tax and homeowners insurance. We can set aside a bunch of money. Um, or we set up direct deposit, direct payment on that, or hire a nonprofit to take care of that, to watch over certain bills that needs to be paid. Because you're right, if you do not pay the property tax and the homeowners insurance, there's a possibility they could be foreclosed upon. That's the two major requirements. The third major requirement is you have to upkeep the home, which is pretty standard for any mortgage. So yes, we can do that. The reverse mortgage, we look at the trust very carefully. I've got two cases right now we're pending because they're using the power of attorney. The one case, the power of attorney is a child, the son. The other power of attorney is a for-profit entity that is doing the trust administration. So that's really important because we, like myself, have to act in a fiduciary responsibility and not from a personal gain or for what only we know. We need to lay everything out on the table and work with the different financial advisors, different insurance agents, tax people to come up with a decision. A lot of times I've seen in cases where whether it was a professional or a nonprofit, they didn't quite understand certain specifics about home equity lines of credits or even reverse mortgage line of credits. And I've seen situations where they were foreclosed upon. If they're in a condo, that's another whole story because of maintenance fees now. I've seen situations where the associations are filing foreclosure after a year of non-payment for maintenance fees. And they know there's a lot of equity there. Well, the associations don't care anymore. Obviously, everybody's different, but I've seen situations where they foreclose after a year of non-payment. And it's pretty sad when they know they're going to get paid back. So usually they bring me in, say, what can they do? And say, well, I can set up a line of credit and take out some money, put it in a separate account, or have auto pay, but that needs to make sure they get paid. So it's a good question, but we need to drill down. I try to drill down why was it not being paid? What's the worry that you're worried about them not being paid? Is there a third party we can call? The third party option down below here, working with people that have experience. The CSA is a Certified Senior Advisor designation, or I didn't put CLTC, the designation I have, which is certified in long-term care. So it's just understanding the whole realm of long-term care from a cost point of view, from a funding point of view. And what I mean by that, Medicare, what Medicare covers, and also what Medicaid covers. Yeah, Medicaid for healthcare, health insurance versus Medicaid for long-term care. So there's two different things, really important. There's many different trust companies out there, Legacy Works, Wendell Lee, State Administrator Steve Harris, Attorney Scott Mokokani, Thomas Rulan, Medicaid Specialist Cardin Outreach and Scott Gardner and Company. They're all they're all entrenched in this field. They all do it full time. And I work with a lot of these people from different various aspects of the client's specific situation. And for us, I'm paid a flat salary on the reverse mortgages, a flat fee. I don't get paid how much money they take out. So it's really important to understand how that professional is being paid. So that's about, I mean, I could go on, but it's almost been almost an hour. If anybody has any more questions, specific questions in your situations, type it in. I'm more than happy to stick around till 1 o'clock for a few more minutes. Greg, did you have any questions? Or I saw who else was on here. I think Carol and Charlene that I know.
This is Greg. I I have no questions, and but Brian or Raylene might be able to read off questions that people have typed in.
Okay, if they have any.
Brian, Raylene.
I saw the chat box. I kind of answered the ones in the chat box.
It
Oh,
looks like there's no other questions
Yeah.
besides the one about memory care.
Memory care is an important topic. I was telling Greg earlier that by the time 2030, the amount of people that have dementia care is probably going to grow to about, they say 60, 70,000. I think it's more like 100,000 because like I said, 3 years ago, we found through studies and through research that almost 50% were not documented. That's a scary thought. Right now, documented, they say, it's from, I think 2 years ago, 29,000. That right now is probably over 32, 34,000. So if that doubles, you're talking about 75,000. And that's just people that's documented. I'm sure a lot of you know people that you know that have dementia, Alzheimer's, and are not documented. And the reason why it's important to get documented that way, from that point on, the family can start reaching out to Alzheimer's Association for information. There's workshops, there's weekly workshops somewhere on every island talking about with the family. Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience also as well. They specialize in neurology, so Parkinson's, all these other related diseases. They have, I believe, 10 different specialties over there besides dementia, Parkinson's. They even have a nutritionist, a psychologist, because we need to deal with that disease in a family from all angles. And it breaks families apart, as you probably have seen yourselves, literally. I have an attorney friend of mine that some of you guys may know. When the father was passing away, the brothers got in fistfights. Um, I could tell you many stories like that, and it just heartbreaking to see. But it's the reality, and I think the emotional side of these decisions we have to make, dealing with stressful situations that are a lot of times not timely, and it comes up at the middle of the day, middle of the night. I had a family that had professionals in the family, and they called me up, and I recommended some places. They go, no, okay, that's okay. We know where to go. I said, okay. And they went to a facility, and they said, oh, we went, it's brand new facility, and they have a lot of nurses. I said, I don't know any place that has a lot of nurses. And I don't know any new places besides the Plaza and Ilima. Well, Ilima's been in what, 5-6 years now in Kapolei. But it wasn't a new facility. It is repainting the walls. It was not new. There was only one nurse out of the 30 CNAs on floor, or 20 CNAs. It's a big facility. There have been many abuse cases at just about every facility. You just don't see it in the news so much. And it's very stressful and emotional. Understand the facility thoroughly. We had a situation a few years back where they move into the facility. I said, okay, well, you let me know if there's any issues. No, we got this. We got this. We talked to the staff. I said, okay. The very next day, I get a call saying we had to submit my mom we had to call 911 last night at 2:00 in the morning. I said, why? Well, at 2:00 in the morning, they got a call saying your mother is not breathing, and we're not sure what to do. And they said, the family said, call 911. And the worker said, well, I have to get clearance from my supervisor. I said, 2:00 in the morning, just call 911 right now. And they did, but can you imagine somebody telling you I have to clear it with my supervisor to call 911? So understanding what's the worst case scenario that's going to happen. Understand it could happen. I don't want it to happen, but I want to be prepared in event something happens. We've seen so many stories that, unfortunately, another attorney that you guys, some of you probably know, the father passed away recently. I have 2 clients recently passed away because of COVID. One passed away within 2 weeks of COVID. So it's just important to understand this area, this field that we work in is very serious. Take it to heart, hire or meet with professionals in the field, because I don't like telling you stories, but I tell you stories and give it kind of a wake-up call that we plan for the worst case scenario, expect the best. That's the best thing I tell you, plan ahead, because I get calls all the time from families, and it's amazing. Like I said, the last 2 days I ran to people at the restaurant that they needed help right there, and we're gonna sit aside and go, I need to help you with it. So as with Governor Ige's wife, her mother doesn't know her name, and it's very difficult. In the story, she talked about how difficult it is. Can you imagine your mother not knowing who you are? That's heart-wrenching. So I had a good talk with her about the issue of dementia, and actually she's now coming out as a spokesperson for the Alzheimer's Association. This year, she is an honorary chair. Kalani Pea, the musician, and the mother was on our cover late last year. talking about his grandma, who he saw in the news, but then COVID, he couldn't visit her. Um, but all these things are critically important. Share the information. You're more than happy to call me, email me, go to our website. But these are our, I tell everybody, treat everybody like it's your grandma, because it's somebody's grandma. And it's really heart-wrenching for myself as well to see things happen. And I'll finish with one last story. So I had a client that called me up saying, I need a reverse mortgage. I said, why? Well, I need my husband needs care. And so I said, okay, well, we take out a line of credit and use only what you need. And after about 2 months of care, the lady called me up and says, you know what? I'm going to cancel the care. I said, why is that? Well, I can take care of him. I said, well, I know you have a shoulder problem and you can't carry him. But no, it's too expensive. It was like $3,000 a month. But didn't come in full time, maybe 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day. So the very next month, the son called me up, who I knew, who referred him to me. He said, my dad fell down. I said, what happened? Mom put him in a wheelchair, put him outside for fresh air. She went inside to get some water, came back out. He fell off the wheelchair, hit his head. 1 week later, he passed away. So did you know that if you leave somebody, you need to strap them in, especially that risky of a situation where it's concrete? Do you want to really leave him there by himself? Those kind of people you got to put a hand on them or watch them or stand in front of them so they don't fall down. But she just went in and get water for him, come back out, and he fell down. So these are how critical these situations are. And it's very sad. Like I saw the son at the golf course the other day, and he's waved to me and said, I hope your mom's doing good. He goes, yeah, she's doing good. So but I'll leave you with that. Like I said, I appreciate the time. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate Greg, you and Jay and Brian and everybody for allowing me to kind of share my story, share what we do. Our website has a ton of information. We have all our radio shows that we do every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock on 101.1. Our webinars we do every month. Probably by July, we'll be doing 2 a month. And all our past issues are on our website. So thank you very much, everybody.
Uh, um, Percy, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences and these wonderful stories with us. Um, I certainly very much appreciate it. I think everyone listening in probably learned a lot about how to make these decisions and what to watch out for. These are very critical. And thank you so much for sharing and helping us out with that.
Anytime, guys, anytime. Appreciate it. Have a great week, everybody. Live well, as I always say, and take care.
Great. And I think we're signing off now.
Okay. Thanks, Greg.
You take care. Thank you.
All right.